Bedtime Stories with the Story Club for Kids. Hello, children. It's time to wind up for the day and settle down for the night. I hope all of you have brushed your teeth and are ready for bed. Now, let's begin our first bedtime story for tonight. Let's listen to the story of Rapunzel. Long ago, in a faraway land, lived a farmer and his wife. One day, they tried to pluck fruits from their neighbor's garden, who was an old wicked witch. She screamed, "How dare you steal from my garden?" The couple trembled with fear and requested the witch to let them take some fruits. The witch agreed and said, "I'll let you go, but in return, you have to give me your firstborn child." The couple was so scared that they immediately agreed and left. After a few months, a beautiful baby girl was born to the couple. Immediately, the witch came and took the girl away from them. She named her Rapunzel and kept her locked up in a tall tower. She grew up into a beautiful girl with long golden hair. Throughout her childhood, the only person she ever saw was the witch. Every day, the witch used to come to the foot of the tower and call out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Rapunzel would let her hair out of the window, and the witch used it to climb up the tower. One day, a prince was passing by and heard the witch. He hid behind the trees to see what was happening. As soon as she left, he decided to go up the tower to meet Rapunzel. "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair," he said, and climbed up. Rapunzel was stunned to see the prince. She had never seen anybody so handsome. They fell in love with each other and began to meet every day after the witch left. One day, however, the witch came to know about the prince, and she got so angry that she cut off Rapunzel's long hair and sent her off deep into the forest. That day, when the prince came, he found the witch waiting for him. She cursed the prince and cast a spell on him that made him lose his eyesight. He wandered in the forest. Many days later, Rapunzel found him among the trees and she began to cry. As soon as Rapunzel's tears fell on him, his wounds healed and his eyesight returned. The first thing the prince saw was his beloved Rapunzel. They were overjoyed to find each other. They went back to the kingdom and lived happily ever after. The end. And now, let us listen to our next story. This is the story of Snow White and Rose Red. There was once a lady who lived in the forest with her 2 daughters in a cottage in the garden of which there grew 2 beautiful rose bushes. One bore white flowers and the other one red. The 2 girls had been named after the rose bushes. Snow White was fair-haired, Rose Red was dark-haired, and both were so nice and so pretty as the flowers after which they had been named. The mother of Snow White and Rose Red was very proud of her daughters, who helped her keep the cottage clean and tidy. the mother had to work very hard to provide food for them all. One winter's evening, there came a loud banging on the cottage door. When the mother opened the door, she saw a huge brown bear standing there. She was very frightened, but then the bear spoke gently. "Please let me come in and get warm for a while. I am frozen." So they let the bear sit by the fire. When he was warm, he got up to leave, but they invited him to stay for the night, and the bear accepted gratefully. "Come whenever you like," said Snow White and Rose Red as he left the next morning. So the bear then came every night for the rest of the winter, and the girls enjoyed his company. When spring came, the bear said that he had to go away for the summer. The girls felt sad when they waved him off, as they would miss him very, very much. Some days later, the girls were in the forest when they came upon a tiny little man, hopping angrily from foot to foot, with his beard caught in a crack in a tree trunk. The girls ran to help him. "I suppose you have come to laugh at me," he snarled. "Don't be silly," said Snow White. "We have come to help you." No amount of pulling could free the dwarf's beard, so eventually Snow White took her scissors from her apron and cut off the end of his beard. "Look what you have done to my beard!" the little man cried furiously. "A curse upon you!" The little man had a bag of gold lying by him, and he grabbed it and disappeared. A little later, Snow White and Rose Red came upon the little man again. He was leaping up and down by the river with his beard tangled in his fishing line. They tried to free it, but finally they had to use the scissors to cut off yet another bit. The little man was free, but angry and ungrateful. "My beard! My pride and joy!" he cried. "Curses upon you!" This time there was a bag of pearls beside him, and he snatched it up and disappeared again. One day, the girls saw a great hawk swooping towards earth. They heard a terrible scream and saw that the hawk had the little man in its talons. The girls hit the hawk and, after pulling at the little man's coat, managed to free him. He fell to the ground in a heap, his face red with fury. "Just look what you have done now. I'm all battered and bruised, and my lovely coat is torn." The little man's rude behavior was no surprise by now, and the girls watched in silence as he picked up a bag containing jewels from the ground beside him and vanished from sight. They were on their way home when they came across the little man once more. He had spread out all his treasures on the ground before him, and Snow White and Rose Red gasped as the jewels sparkled in the sunshine, but suddenly the little man saw them. "What are you staring at?" he demanded angrily, and began to gather up his treasures. But he was stopped by a great roaring sound coming from the trees. His fury turned to terror as a big brown bear crashed through the undergrowth towards him. The little man panicked, and there was no time to hide. "Oh, Mr. Bear, please forgive me," he cried. "Spare my life, I beg of you. I shall give you all these treasures. Look at these girls, they will make you a tasty dinner. Take them, not me." But the bear gave a mighty roar, and the little man ran away into the forest, leaving all his treasures behind, never to be seen again. Snow White and Rose Red fearing for their own lives, ran away, but the bear called them back. Snow White and Rose Red, don't be afraid. The girls recognized their old friend. The big brown bear that had saved his life and chased the little man away was the same big brown bear who received shelter in the home of Snow White and Rose Red during the freezing winter. Snow White and Rose Red gathered up all the treasure that had been left behind by the little man, and instead of taking it home, they decided to return it to the palace. On returning the treasure back to the palace, the king was impressed by their honesty. He congratulated them on recovering all these stolen treasures and rewarded them with 1,000 gold coins for their sincerity and for bringing all the treasures back to the palace. Snow White, Rose Red, and their mother lived comfortably and did not have to worry about food again. The end. And that's all for tonight. Good night, sleep tight, and don't let the bedbugs bite. Bye bye, children.